Hey guys, Brad from SimpleGuitar.com here, and welcome back to the Total Beginner series of videos. These videos are here to help you if you have zero experience playing guitar or with music or anything. Just trying to show you all the super basic stuff to get you up and running off the ground with zero experience. So today we are going to be talking about how to read chord diagrams. What the heck is a chord diagram? Well, a chord diagram is basically a way that we communicate how to play a different chord. So in another video, I talked about how to read guitar tab or tablature, and that's one way that we communicate how to play music. Just like standard notation that has been used for hundreds of years is a way that we communicate how to play music. Chord diagrams are the same thing. They show us a way that we play chords on the guitar. And so it's a communication medium for us as guitar players to use so that we can document how we're playing things and then show that to other people and show them how to play it. Okay, so this is what a chord diagram looks like. You have basically this grid of vertical and horizontal lines, and each of these lines represent something. Basically, this is a snapshot of the neck of a guitar. So this is a picture of my guitar here. And you'll see on my guitar the vertical strings running up and down, right? And the frets running across horizontally. And then at the top, there's the white nut that all the strings pass through. And that is basically how your chord diagram works as well. So this top thick black line is representing the nut of the guitar. These other horizontal lines are your frets, and the vertical lines are your strings. So the line all the way on the right is your first string, and then you have your second, your third, your fourth, your fifth, and your sixth moving to the left, and your sixth string is all the way on the left. So that's your nut, your frets, and your strings. Now, when I approach a new chord diagram, this is going to show us how to play a chord. And if you look at it all at once, it can be a little bit overwhelming. What we're going to do is we're going to go through a chord here on this diagram, and we're going to walk string by string, and I'm going to show you what every part of the chord diagram means. So first, when you see a circle above one of the strings like this, so this is a circle above the first string, that means that you're going to play that string open. So no fingers are going to be touching it, but we do want to hear that string ringing open. If you see an X like this over the sixth string, that means that you are not going to play that string, or it means that you're going to mute that string. I'll show you an example of that later, where you have an X and it's kind of inside the chord, so you've got fingers around that X. And like I said, I'll show you that later, but an X above the string means either don't play that string or that string is going to be muted. Now, whenever you see a dot on the diagram, where that dot is, the position of that dot on what vertical line is what string you're playing, and above what horizontal line is what fret you're going to play. So that position is where you're going to place your finger, okay? And the number that is either in the dot or right outside that dot, or even sometimes they put the number down below right here where it says second for the second string. Sometimes you'll see the number 1 there and it's just a dot. That number, wherever it is which finger you're going to play in that position. So here we're going to take our first finger on our fretting hand, and it's going to go on the second string on the first fret, and we're going to hold that note down. Okay, let's go to the next string. Now the third string here, we're going to play open. There's another circle above that string. Okay, so we have our first string open, we have our first finger on the first fret of your second string, and our third string is open. And your fourth string, we have your second finger, because it's a number 2, and it's on the line for the fourth string, and it's over the second fret. So you're going to have your second finger, fourth string, second fret. And you got to make sure that that is not touching your third string, for example, because we need that string to sound open. And then the last string for this chord is going to be your third finger, because of the number 3 in the dot, and it's on your fifth string, and it's above your third fret. Okay, so this is, if you recognize this already, this is a C chord, but that's what the basics mean when you're looking at these chord diagrams. So again, you've got your top line, your top thick line is the nut of the guitar, your horizontal lines are the frets, your strings are the vertical lines, Whenever you see a circle above a string, that means to play that string open. An X above the string means to not play that string or to mute that string. And then when you see the dots, the position of the dots on what vertical line for what string and over what fret for the horizontal line, that position is where you're going to put your fingers, and whatever number is in the dot or next to the dot or under the line that the dot is on for the string, that is the finger on your fretting hand that you're going to use. So here we're playing with our first, our second, and our third fingers. That's really the basics of how to read a chord diagram. Here it is again. But there are a few other things that I want you to be aware of. One, you're going to see the name of the chord above the chord diagram. So here, like I said, this is a C chord. Now, when you see a letter just by itself like this, this represents a certain type of chord. And we call this type of chord a major chord. Here's what the chord sounds like if I play it on my guitar here. Now, people will typically describe the sound of a major chord like this as sounding bright or happy. You can describe it however you feel is appropriate for you. That's just what people have described it as in the past. But the most important thing for you to understand is that a major chord sounds a certain way. And there are other types of chords that we're going to look at. So a letter all by itself, that represents a major chord. So you could say this is a C chord, or you could hear someone play this is C major. Okay, same thing. Now, when you see a chord diagram like this, the name above this chord has your letter, which is E, so that's naming the chord, but we have this other little M next to it. And this M represents a different type of chord from major. This actually represents a minor chord. So when you see this little M next to a chord name, that means it is going to be a minor chord, which is a different type of chord from a major chord. And so just like a major chord sounds one way, a minor chord has its own sound, and it sounds like this. So that is the E minor chord that I just played. Most people will describe a minor chord as sounding darker or sadder or meaner or whatever. You can describe it as whatever you want, but the most important thing to understand now is a major chord has a different sound than a minor chord. So let's look at this one too. This is a D7 chord, which is a seventh type chord, okay? So this is just a different type of chord, and it has its own sound. If I play this D7 chord here, it's going to sound like this. So a seventh chord is just a different type of chord, just like a minor chord and a major chord, and it has its own sound. Now, one last one to look at. This is a minor seventh chord because we have the little M for minor, and we have the 7 for the seventh. So that together means it is a minor seventh chord. So here I have this A minor seventh, and it sounds like this. So it has its own sound. So in the very beginning, when you're just starting out, that's the most important thing to understand, is that a major chord sounds one way, a minor chord sounds one way, a seventh chord sounds one way, a minor seventh sounds another way. And there are lots of other types of chords, but we're not going to go into those right now. We can talk about those later. When you're starting out, these are kind of the 4 most important ones to be aware of and to be able to recognize. So when you see these in chord diagrams, this way I want you to know what they are and be aware of them. And then if you have any questions about them, do leave a comment down below in the video. Now let's look at something else that you're going to see in chord diagrams, especially as you're playing and getting more into the intermediate and advanced stages of playing. And that is this. This is what we call a bar. So right here, you see that number 1 in there. That means I'm going to be using my first finger, but what the heck do I do with that bar crossing all the strings? Well, this is where we're going to play what's called a bar chord. And if you don't know what that is, that's okay. And if you do know what that is, don't worry, I'm not going to make you play it right now. I'm just showing you this so that you're aware of what this looks like on a chord diagram when you see one. So what this means with that bar is I'm going to take my first finger and I'm going to lay it across all 6 strings on my 2nd fret, okay? And so if I do that and I just press down on all the strings, it sounds like this. But we get the name bar chord because I'm going to take my other fingers and I'm going to make a chord on top of that. And then it sounds like that. See, much better. But that's what that means. When you see that, it means that you're going to be using your finger to bar across multiple strings. Now, it's not always going to be across all the strings like that. Sometimes you're going to see stuff like this. Now, this is also the example that I told you I was going to show you about using an X'd out string, a muted string, because here we have your 2nd finger on the 4th fret of the 6th string, and then the 5th string has an X above it. So that string needs to be muted. And then my first finger is barring across the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th strings. And my 3rd finger is playing on the 3rd string. And then I'm not going to play the 1st string. So with that, when I play this, I'm going to let my 1st finger bar those 3 strings. And then my 2nd finger is going to be on that 6th string. And I'm going to let it lay back just a little bit and touch that 5th string. So my 6th string will sound out like this. But when I hit my 5th string, it's muted. Okay, so we don't want to hear that string. And then if I play the full chord, you're just going to hear this. Which, yes, that is how that chord is supposed to sound. This is a diminished chord. It's a little bit more advanced, but I wanted to show you this example where you're barring, but you're not barring all the strings, and you also have a muted note within that string. That's what that means when you see that, okay? Now, you'll also see other fingers doing the barring as well. With this one, this is a C9th chord, and my 3rd finger is barring my 1st, 2nd, and 3rd strings, and so this chord will sound like this. This is something that you will see. Like I said, you may not see this very much in the beginning when you're starting out playing, but as you're playing guitar more and getting into the more intermediate and advanced levels, you will see this, and I just want you to be aware of it and that this is what it is. And if you want to, you can always come back and watch this again and watch that explanation over. But like I said, if you have any questions about it, do leave a comment down in the comments. Now, one last thing that I want to show you with this is most of the time when you see a chord diagram, it only shows the first 4 or 5 frets on the fretboard. So what do you do if you have to show a chord that's higher up on the fretboard so that people understand how to play it? Well, that's where this comes in. Sometimes you'll see a number next to the chord diagram, and that is going to indicate what fret is right next to that number. So in this case, I have a number 5, and it's right next to the fret that my first finger is on. So that means I'm going to put my first finger on the 5th fret, and then I'm going to play my 5th fret with that, and then it'll be my 6th and 7th frets with my other fingers. So that'll sound like this. Okay, so that changes what type of chord this is because I'm playing it in a different position. Now, sometimes you won't see a nice number like this. Sometimes you're going to see Roman numerals, and it's the same idea. But with this, for example, the Roman numeral 5 here is next to the 1st fret on the diagram. And so that means I'm going to put my first finger across the 6th fret and then play my 6th, 7th, and 8th frets, and it'll sound like this. So you will see that. Like I said, you're not going to see it a whole lot right now in the beginning, but I just want you to be aware what it is so that when you do encounter it, you're not confused and you're not going, what the heck is that? Because I remember when I first saw that, I was like, what is going on? What is this? What are they doing here? And so that way I want you to know that's just showing another position on the fretboard so that you can show chords across the entire fretboard, not just down in the first 4 or 5 frets. So quick review, above your chord diagram, you're going to have the name of the chord. And so you've got your major chords, your minor chords, your 7th chords, your minor 7th chords, and all sorts of other different ones. We'll go over those later. But the name of your chord is above it. The top thick black line is the nut of your guitar. The other horizontal thin lines are your frets. Your vertical lines represent the strings of your guitar. Whenever you see a circle above a string, that means to play that string open. and X above the string means to not play that string or to mute that string. And then the dots that are on the diagram, the position of where it is, what string and what fret it's over, is where your finger goes, and the number is which finger you're going to use. And like I said, sometimes you'll see those numbers in the dots like this. Sometimes you'll see them right outside the dots, right next to it. And sometimes it'll be under the line for that string. Okay. And sometimes people are mean and they don't give you a number and you just have to guess what fingers you're going to use and try stuff out. But this is the basics of how to read these chord diagrams. I hope that this helps you out. I hope it makes it simple so that when you see chord diagrams, you're not overwhelmed. And like I said, I like to just go one string at a time or one finger at a time through the chord. So don't just get overwhelmed by looking at the whole thing. Break it down and go one step at a time. First string, second string, third string, fourth string, and that'll make it easier. But if you understand how to read these chord diagrams, you literally can learn any chord on the guitar, because this is one of the most common ways that we communicate how to play different chords on the guitar. And we just use these cool little pictures called chord diagrams. Now, if you haven't already, I do have a free gift for you at my website. If you go to simpleguitar.com/top10, I will put a link below in the comments. There you can get a free guide called the Top 10 Things to Learn on Guitar First. And with that, that is going to show you the top 10 things that I teach students all the time to get them up and playing and having fun right away on the guitar. I hate it when people start out playing guitar and they're playing stuff like Twinkle Twinkle Little Star and really boring exercises. I like to get people playing music right away. So, for example, the first thing that is in that guide is playing power chords. I love getting students playing power chords first because they're so simple, they're so easy, they take 2 fingers. But what I love most is actually starting students out on drop D tuning power chords. So these are even easier. They only take 1 finger, so you can play songs with 1 finger right away, off the bat. And so go check out that guide, use it, have fun with it, and I hope that it helps you out. But like I said, it's totally free. So go to the website, download that guide. And again, thanks for subscribing and liking the video. I really appreciate it. And I will catch you in the next video.